Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's event, Finding and Amplifying Stories that Hero Your Brand. My name is Peter, and I'm a client partner here at Distillery, and I am joined this morning by Alison Norrington, founder and chief creative director at Storycentral. Now, this morning will be all about storytelling, how it connects people, and how it builds trust in business. Alison is going to share her wealth of experience and knowledge, as well as take us through a few case studies on how she has helped big name brands better connect with their audiences through storytelling. Now, I could fill the whole hour with recounting Alison's successes, but why don't I just hand it over to Alison for her to introduce herself and share her insights on finding and amplifying stories that hero your brand. Over to you, Alison.
Thank you, Steve. Yes, I've worked for loads of brilliant clients. I've been really, really lucky. The humble thing is that I actually started as a novelist and had no idea it was going to take this path. But I think by doing that and understanding story, it opened up a ton of doors. Everything really changed for me. There was two moments. One was when I started a master's degree in 2005 in creative writing and new media. Didn't know what the new media part was, but it opened up a load of doors. And the second part was when I went from writing novels to writing plays. And I stood behind the curtain and saw my audience for the first time, which was brilliant and terrifying because they didn't laugh at the parts I thought they would, and they cried a little bit too much at the things that were a little bit sad. So actually looking my audience in the eye changed everything. So yeah, I'm not going to go on about me too much. I really want to dive into this. Thank you for having me today. And I hope you've all got coffee because I've got a ton of stuff I want to get through with you in the next 40 minutes or so. The first thing I want to talk about is the evolution of conversation. Now, there was a study that was done for Intel a few years ago in LA, and it was defined from this study, there are 4 levels of conversation between storytellers and audiences or brands and consumers. And I'm just going to whiz through those 4 levels because I think understanding how this communication path has changed helps us to kind of pitch where each project we work on sits on this scale. So the first question is, why have the conversations between consumers and brands ended? And why do we care? Why is it important? I'm sure loads of you are familiar with Simon Sinek's Start With Why Golden Circle talk. If you haven't seen it, I recommend you look at it on YouTube. And he really differentiates and he plays off in far better ways than I will, Apple and Microsoft. So he would say, for example, Microsoft, like many brands, come out with a new product and they go right up here to tell us what it is. The trouble is everyone's telling us what they've got, everybody. And we're a little bit deaf and blind because everyone wants our attention and wants our eyeballs on their stuff. So we kind of zone out a little bit to the what. We don't really care. What Apple do so well is they start with why they've designed or developed a new product or a new app or a new piece of kit. Essentially, in telling us why, they give us a problem that we probably didn't know we had, right? So they've developed this new app because we're not managing our lifestyle, our money, our fitness, whatever it might be, okay? So they will tell us the heart and the reason why something new has been made, but we don't know anything more. Then they tell us how it's going to work for us. So here they give us the problem, if you like. Here they give us the solution. It's going to work by syncing with our Fitbit or our bank account or whatever it might be. So then here, problem, solution equals story. We probably go, yeah, okay, what is it? We're probably not going to buy it, but what is it anyway? Then they tell us what it is. So that allows us to be ambassadors for their brand. That allows us to see our friends when we're allowed to go out places, like we go to the pub or whatever we do, and we can say, oh, did you see that new thing Apple brought out? You know why they done that? They allow and empower us to be storytellers for them. It's pretty damn smart. But the evolution of conversation between storyteller audiences, consumers, and brands takes that to another level because the 4 levels go like this. The first level is the broadcast model. We've had 150 years of this, and it's essentially this, right? They didn't care what we thought. There was a pipeline that ran to our television sets in our homes. I mean, God, back in the day, there were like 4 channels. I don't know, there's a ton more now, but it didn't matter. We had limited options. Books were libraries or bookshops. News was television news or newspapers. Anything else, entertainment, was cinema or TV. They had the monopoly. It did not matter what we thought. And the message behind that was this: here's a closed story world, and I don't want or need to listen. Fingers in the ears. Doesn't work. Sorry, we're closed. Those days are long, long gone. And I do sometimes talk to broadcasters that aren't too fond of that statement, but the sore fact is that it's true. Second level, I really like the second level. The second level is the listening model. We talk a lot about storytelling, but we don't actually talk so much about listening back, raising our head, looking out to see who our audience are, who our consumers are. The listening model says this: here's a world I've created. Come in and play. I'm listening to you, but I'm still the boss of the story. A great example of this was the director John Chu, who did the Legion of Extraordinary Dancers and the Bieber movie, Believe. Now, knowing your audience is key. And for the Bieber movie, it was evident that it's predominantly teenage girls. And at the time, Twitter was the platform of choice. So the strategy was to release still images from the shoot with key, very easy and kind of meaningless questions. For example, okay, in this next scene, will Bieber wear the black hat or the white hat? It was an open question. There was no yes or no correct answer. Fans would either reply with like a hashtag black, hashtag white, hashtag rainbow, hashtag naked. It didn't matter what they said. They weren't holding the shoot to wait and see what the consensus was. But what happened is when the cinema hit the theatres, there were tons of people in the audience at key moments going, yeah, they listened to me. They picked the black hat. They did this, they did that. Really smart. And it creates like an advocacy around the movie, even while it's still being shot. Really smart. And the listening model, I'm a big fan. The third level, actually, I really like too. This is welcome to my world. And this is the statement. Similar to the listening, here's a world of creative come in and play. But this time you can add to it, remix it, make stuff, create memes, build on it, collaborate and have fun. This is a perfect example of what happened with Tim Kring's Heroes. Assets were released about the show online prior to the TV series going live. You could find out backstories of characters, you could figure out dynamics, even if you wanted to be on a superficial level, brands that they favoured, things that they like to do in their spare time. By season 3 of Heroes, the writer's Bible was discarded for the fan wiki because the fan wiki was better documented than any material that the writers had, because that was the nature of the fans. And I don't actually know a time where something like that has happened, that the online resource was more highly favoured than the material that came from the writer, because the fans just knew these characters and their story arcs so well. The fourth level I would really approach with caution. Every time I've seen this happen, it's a little bit of a disaster. And this is take it, it's yours. This is absolutely shared storytelling or collaboration. Here's a world I've created, go with it and run with it. Eric Kripke of Supernatural did this for season 8. He invited fans to create canon around the series and submit it. Now, you've got to know 7 seasons of a series in order to understand the mythology, the dynamics, the characters. But fans did put stuff in, and there were elements of story arcs that were extracted and woven through this season. He got a lot of press for it, so maybe that was the intention. Who knows? It's not for me to say, but I do have suspicions. And it's reported that 50% of the fans loved that he opened it up and said, come on, join in, like, what you got? And 50% of the fans hated it and said, look, you're the storyteller. What are you doing asking people to add in their stories? Either way, from a press perspective, he ticked a big box. So if we're looking at why, we need to get this sense of why do we as brands, right? So even like we are Distillery as a brand, but also brands that you work with, why do they do what they do? We all know what we do, every organization, we all know what we do. It's our day-to-day. How we do that is some opportunity to elevate us and sprinkle some kind of special sauce on our DNA, if you like. But why do we do what we do? And we're not talking about like paying the bills, right? And we go to work to make money. It's not that. There's an inherent core, and I do call it a DNA, of why we do what we do. What's the purpose? What's the belief? and it's quite hard to define sometimes. And I have worked with brands that don't know this. So that's a whole nother element of work pattern to try to, and I've got to say, it's a little bit like counseling sometimes, because you kind of sometimes go very deep into somebody to get this sense of why they do what they do, whether that's as a brand or whether it's as an individual. And it's the difference between this. Martin Luther King was selling a dream. Trump was selling a plan. And you can see the difference for yourself between this idea of getting people behind a core sense of why and a narrative. Understanding the why connects with us on an emotional level. Having a plan disconnects with us because it's all like someone's already got it worked out and it's all up here. So there's a really nice shift in tone between selling a dream and selling a plan. So the first thing I want to look at is the fundamentals of story, because this is so important because it underpins everything. A lot of campaigns that roll out that are sort of surface level and don't have a strong story at the heart or a why at the heart, I feel kind of dilute as they move across platform to platform, because people can't really get a sense of being part of what it is. And this is a methodology map that I've used. This actually came out of my PhD research. You'd think something a little bit more academic and pretty would come out of it, but this actually is tried and tested. I've used this when I've worked with BBC, AMC, Channel 4, CBS, like all of the big Disney, all of the names. I have referred back to this principle, and I'm going to talk through it pretty quickly because I don't want to spend too much time. Story at the center always, without a doubt. If story's not at the middle, you've got to reframe what you're doing. The green part is a deep dive look at the story and what you've created in terms of a world. Your big idea is your theme, your why, your message, your ethos, your DNA. We'll look at that in a second. The story world, where is it? Is it Pandora on Avatar? Is it a galaxy far, far away in Star Wars? Is it up the road? Is it Covent Garden? Is it like, I don't know, Downton Abbey? What's the world you've created? Because that comes with a series of rules, mythologies, and expectations. The location, is it somewhere that people can feel is tangible and visit? Or is it somewhere far, far away that allows you to open people's brains and be more kind of magical about their thinking? The genre of the story, many times a flipping genre, actually gives a whole new feel to a story. So is it comedy? Is it romance? They're quite passive in terms of audience engagement because they like to be told those stories. Science fiction, thriller, crime, they make us work really hard in our head. We feel very passive, but we're really trying to figure out, he was there, she was there, he did that. So the genre has a huge impact on how your audience react and can interact with your story. Characters and archetypes, we always look at archetypes for our characters in our story. What we don't tend to do is switch it around to this yellow section. This is where we look up and we look out at who we're telling our story to. We don't figure out our audience as an archetype. And that's something I always go on about quite a lot. But who are our audience? Let's not say 18 to 35-year-old men. I mean, that's like back in the day. Who are our audience and what are their archetypes? How do they behave around genre? How deep down a rabbit hole can we take them? And that ties into genre. Certain genres will allow that. What are the barriers to entry? What do they need to know before they can engage and jump over the line? How can we create playful content? Do we want and do we need user-generated content? If we're asking for it, we better make sure we're doing something really good with it to blow their socks off. The orange section then looks at experience and experience design, often tied into the theme. I'm a big fan of the experience echoing the theme. That's a whole nother conversation. But we look at participation, interaction. We look at runways. What can you do to lead people up to a moment of an event or a launch? And what can you do after that to keep them there as a community? And I always liken this to little chicks in a nest with their mouths open for more worms. If they want more worms, you better have more worms to give them. Otherwise, they'll go somewhere else. The pink part is platforms, formats, packaging. The blue part is kind of where the money is. The business model, the rollout, distribution, partners, franchises, timelines, how you can level up stuff maybe behind paywalls, how can you reward people. But for me, really, the course of development work is up here in the green, yellow, and orange sections. And I could talk about that for probably another hour, but I won't. I'm going to talk about theme. Theme is the big idea. And this is sometimes what I feel And it's quite hard to nail. I have worked with brands that say to me, yes, our core ethos and our message is this. 9 times out of 10, it's not good enough. It's not robust enough. It's not strong enough. It's too kind of wishy-washy and floppy. A good theme needs to be something that, as a human, of course we all are, we get it. It touches our heart. We can feel it. If you're living in a penthouse apartment in Dubai, or you're living under a bridge somewhere terribly, intrinsically as human beings, we just get it. We just understand that feeling. That's what makes a good theme. So if we look at things like Star Trek, you've got Captain Kirk as your main man. You've got Mr. Spock on one side, absolutely goes with his head. Everything Spock says and does is logical. And I think that's even a line that he uses. It's logical, Captain. So Spock goes with his head. Reason, logic wins every time. On the other side of Kirk is McCoy, or Scotty, very in touch with his feelings, very emotional. What you've got with Star Trek is a guy who looks like the main character because he's the decision maker, balancing head versus heart. That's something we'll get. I can guarantee stripping down age, culture, race, wealth, class, religion, anything, body shape, size, height, whatever you want to go with, strip all of that down from people, and we can all understand a moment where we have either had to go with our head or go with our heart. And that's what you want from a good theme, a good message, a good DNA. If we look at Star Wars, we've clearly got a story of light versus dark. When things go bad, it's so much easier to go into the dark side and be moany. And the thing with Star Wars is to try to always remain in the light. And that gets harder and harder as more darkness comes around you. If we look at Avatar, there's no mistake about the big green eyes. It's the messaging. Despite many fans following Avatar, and this is seriously true, that they want to paint their bodies blue and run naked in the woods. And there are thousands of people that do that, mostly in America. Other people feeling that it's about like a sustainable life and sustainable living, which clearly it is. The core heartbeat of Avatar is the ability to see. Jack Sully goes into Pandora. He sees the Na'vi and their life in a way that Sigourney Weaver's character never has. She's got all the textbooks on them, but she's never seen them. In turn, the Na'vi, through their love affair, see humankind in a different way. The only character that doesn't have that moment of like, oh my goodness, really seeing each other is the Colonel guy in the big robot legs at the end who gets the harpoon and dies. 14 minutes into Mad Men, Sal is our character. He's secretly gay. We've only known him 14 minutes, so we have no way of knowing that. And he nails the entire series. We're supposed to believe people are living one way while secretly thinking the opposite. Don Draper's not John Draper. He's Dick Whitman. He's stolen his dead friend's dog tag. When he got killed, no one is who they appear to be. They're all living a facade and a lie. Some of the best series, in Breaking Bad did it too, nail the theme and the ethos of the entire show in a line of dialogue. It's genius. So a little case study for me is that I was called in a few years ago to work with Forevermark. Forevermark are a subsidiary of De Beers, which has a legacy going back to the 1800s. Forevermark will position themselves kind of like around an Apple aesthetic, clean lines, very sharp, going for a very much younger demographic of age group than, dare I say it, crusty old De Beers, right? And when I came in to work with Forevermark, my first question always is, who do they see themselves as? And they were like, oh my goodness, well, we are the young hero. I'm like, you're 8 years old. How can you be a hero at 8 years old? Like, it looks fake and it looks presumptuous and a little bit cocky to say that you're 8 years old and you're a hero. Oh yeah, but we are, because, and they do loads of great stuff. They've got a lot, and I won't go into it, but they've got a lot of ways that they don't dig too deep into the ground. Apparently some of the diamond mines go down 16 cuts into the ground, which is huge. Forevermark claim only to go 6 or 8. There's lots of stuff they were doing to kind of rectify the wrongs of diamond mining. Whether we agree with that is another thing. My question to them was, I felt they should be more of a plucky prince. If De Beers was the king and the legacy, Forevermark can't be a hero. Forevermark are a plucky prince who's ready to run and see the world in a new way, having learned and been born from the legacy of De Beers. And my first job with them was to reframe all of that before we could move ahead with anything else. That took quite a lot of work. Traditionally, they were looking at this old idea of a man giving a woman a diamond. And they knew that was kind of dead in the water, really. So they were completely reframing the look and feel of the brand, encouraging it to be sisters giving each other diamonds, or parents or friends. They were looking at kind of non-traditional, I suppose, relationships. They knew they had to freshen it all up. Their goal really, I feel, was to catch people, young people, and the belief that they buy their first diamond with Forever Mark, because we're all buying diamonds all the time, right? You will stay buying your diamonds with Forever Mark. So they were looking at this kind of shift, this more modern way of the transaction of and the importance of buying a diamond that did good for the world, if you want to go with that way. And it doesn't have to be a romantic relationship where the woman's waiting for the man to give her the diamond. So once we got that done, the next thing was they set me a brief. They wanted an updated brand book, which I thought looked like a good idea based on the fact we'd reframed the brand in a way. But I had another idea. I thought, how about if we storyfy the brand book? How about if the brand book is telling that story of legacy of this plucky young prince? And then I looked at what they had and I thought, well, how about if we do a storyfied brand book without using the word love? Because what they had was loaded with the word love. And love is a really strange word because you feel it, but when you say it, it's dead and it's flat. You can never convey the emotion of love through the word. So my task that I set myself was to rewrite the brand book, never using that word, and to use evocative language that allowed you to feel the sentiment without that jarring thing of keep reading the word. And this was my thought. Love is like electricity. It's a force that prompts people to make crazy, plot-friendly decisions, but it's kind of difficult to see. You want to kind of not go too subtle because then you miss it. And you don't want to go too obvious because it comes like pantomime. So the three little words, I love you, are a little bit melodramatic and overused. So it has to come through evocative language. And I suppose in a way, slightly poetic writing. And I found these romantic lines that don't use the word love. And of course, because love is so personal, none of them may feel romantic to you or just a few. And I have my own thoughts. If you ever have need of my life, come and take it. You gave me a forever within the numbered days, and I'm grateful. I wish I knew how to quit you. If you live to be 100, I want to live to be 100 minus one day, so I never live without you. Good old Winnie the Pooh. And whatever our souls are made of, his and mine are the same. And again, we all receive and give love differently. So some connect and some don't. It's a tricky thing to navigate. Okay, so we'll look at experience design, okay, because we also want to find ways, once we've got the brand DNA and the message, how do we echo that in how we bring people to the brand and the product? A key question I always ask is, how do you want people to feel at the end? What's the emotional output? Because we all sit with these great ideas, but to know how you want them to feel at the end, not that I'm ever into fishing, but when I've seen people fishing and they cast that line out, where that falls into the water, that's your end point. That's how you want people to feel. So map it to there and then reel it back from that point, because you have to know how you want them to feel, and it has to align with the ethos of the brand. So if we look at the shape of stories, almost as if they're roller coasters, there'll be certain brands that will align with these kinds of narratives, this kind of arc and this narrative design. Overcoming the monster, just think Jaws, basically. Everything's good, something goes wrong, it all goes a bit wonky, and now we have to pull our way up out of that, get rid of the shark, everyone's happy ever after. So you have this sense of dropping people down into a moment where they then have to perhaps work together to make everything okay. Voyage and Return, we think Wizard of Oz or even Alice in Wonderland, they literally fall down a rabbit hole. Everything's weird, it kind of looks good, it's a bit fun, we meet these quirky characters, suddenly the Green Witch comes in, it's not so good, we have to kind of overcome our fears and we get back to where we began, but we learn something on the way. Everyone loves a rise of an underdog story, so rags to riches, everything's crap, then an opportunity comes along, someone's brave enough to bite the bullet and take it, and we all live happily ever after. Everyone loves that story. There's something about us humans that love a rise of the underdog. A quest, basically think Indiana Jones. So there's a calling, you can't say no to it, you set out on a journey, you have all these problems that you have to navigate, we complete the mission, happy ever after. I won't go into tragedy, nobody wants that as a brand, but comedy is a really good way to kind of mitigate tragedy. They work very nicely hand in hand. I won't even go into rebirth. So if we're thinking about emotional design and this output of how do we want people to feel at the end, we've got our brand, we've got our brand ethos or our DNA or our message. We've got the story that we've decided we're going to tell to reflect those values. We're figuring out what the experience might be aligning to the brand DNA. Now is the question, how do we want them to feel at the end? And I don't know if any of you have worked with archetypes. I'm a massive fan. I've got lots to say about it, but I know I need to keep it relatively quick and simple. So here's a nice image where there's 12 archetypes here, divided into 4 quadrants. And the 4 quadrants, if you kind of read them inside out, which is what the best stories are done in that way anyway, if you have a yearning for paradise, you're looking for safety, understanding, or freedom. We're then looking at archetypes of innocent, wise person, or explorer. So they're all looking for this paradise in different ways. If we're looking to leave a mark on the world, we're looking at liberation, power, and mastery because we want to leave this kind of legacy. So then in order to do that, you're going to be maybe something of an outlaw, a little bit of an alchemist, and maybe even a hero. If you want to connect with others, the reasons for that are looking for belonging, enjoyment, or intimacy. So then we have lover, jester, and everyman. I hate everyman, but that's another topic. And then the final one is to provide some kind of structure to the world. You're sort of some kind of person that likes to see a methodology. We're looking at innovation or control or service. Now, none of us and no brand is only one archetype. And it's quite comical, really, because we're never who we think we are. If we spoke to our friends and family and went through this, everyone sees us completely different to who we think we are ourselves, which is, again, something that's worth exploring. There is a funny quiz online called archetypes.com where you answer a few questions and it tells you who they think you are. But I'm going to dive into these quadrants a little more because these work on 2 levels. These work on the level of the archetype, actually 3 levels. The archetype of we are distillery as a brand. Where does that sit here? The archetype of every single new client that you work with, where do they sit on here? But then also the archetype of the consumer or the target base or audience, where do they sit on here? Because then suddenly you have a very unique prescription, if you like, that for each partnership of agency, brand, consumer, there'll be very few that have that kind of alchemistic prescription of these very unique touch points. So if we look down here in the left on the yearning for paradise, and these are just examples, and some of them are very American, I know. If we're looking for safety and we're looking for the innocent will never be the person to go first. The innocent will always wait for somebody else to step forward because the innocent never wants to get anything wrong or doesn't want to look stupid. But the innocent is very loyal and will absolutely protect the integrity of a project or a brand once they're in and behind it. And sometimes they work really well to police stuff as well. You know, when you get people on social media like trolls and stuff, the innocent will really kind of be the one to try and keep peace, I suppose. So for the innocent and for the safety, we're looking at Red Cross, Volkswagen, Nintendo, Wii, Coca-Cola. If we're looking for this understanding, this wisdom, then we're thinking of brands like Smithsonian, Rosetta Stone, and Oprah. Freedom and explorers, and I always say Ariel from Little Mermaid was a perfect example of this. We look at these brands, Patagonia, National Geographic, and Corona as the beer and not the virus. Leaving a mark on the world, outlaws, you're thinking of these names, activists, mavericks, rebels, we're thinking of Virgin, Harley Davidson, PayPal. Magicians, also now alchemy, engineering, innovation, Victorinox, which is the Swiss Army knives, Dyson, Xbox 360 and Mac. The hero brands, FedEx, Snickers, Nike, Adidas. And I would say most fitness brands tend to fit under that hero and that mastery idea. So they all want this idea of this kind of sense of notion that you're overcoming something and you're really good at this thing. The seeking connection brands, we're looking here at the everyman. And again, I really have a problem with everyman because I think it's a bit of a kind of misnomer. It's not defined enough that I like it, but never mind. We're looking at Trader Joe's, KitKat, eBay, IKEA, and Muji. Enjoyment brands, of course, M&M's got to be in there, right? Cadbury's, Ben and Jerry's, Fanta, Old Spice. I wouldn't have said the Old Spice, the old one, but the newer one, yes, definitely. Cirque du Soleil and Geico. And then we're looking at these kind of lover intimacy brands. Of course, Vegas wants to create that sense. Companion, hedonistic. They want people going back to put their money in those machines. W Hotels, Haagen-Dazs, Chanel. And if we're looking at this sense down here of providing structure to the world, the caregiver brands, of course, Dove, UNICEF, Johnson & Johnson, Salvation Army. The ruler brands who want to have control, and these are the tried and tested. Consumer Reports, British Airways, Microsoft, all want to be in that category where they're not questioned, I suppose. And the innovation and creator brands, D&G, Fast Company, Adobe, Lego, very artistic, entrepreneurial. So it's quite interesting to kind of figure out, almost like instinctively, I suppose, sometimes, where brands that you work with fit into that category. Now, another case study is I did a little work for Disney a few years ago, 2017, in the UK, and I went into their brands and partnerships division. Because there was a time when, if you were looking to, from Disney perspective, partner with a brand, it was a simple email. You're Disney, everyone wants to be involved. It's a no-brainer. But things were changing because there were other entertainment brands coming forward that were positioning themselves better with more of a heartfelt message behind it and more of a reason for the partnership. So I had to come in and kind of work for a few days with a huge team around understanding the DNA of the brands that they were looking to partner with. So they needed to understand who they were reaching out to and what their values were in order for Disney to be able to say, well, look, for example, we had this new movie coming out, like Frozen, and the romantic love in Frozen is between two sisters. It's not a sexist love, because we want to do away with this old princess thing being saved by the prince. And it's not quite a fit, of course, because I'm making it up, but that could have been a really great perhaps partnership for something like Dove. I mean, it's not the right one, but you extract the values of the Disney material in order to be able to align and focus on a partner, a brand partner that has similar aligned brands. So the Disney Pandora partnership, I have no idea. Like, I'm always open for someone to tell me what on earth that was about, but I do not see how a woman wearing Pandora jewelry with Mickey Mouse ears and spotty balloons I just don't even see a connection between Disney and Pandora. And maybe that's because I haven't taken the time to dive into it, but it just doesn't work for me in any shape or form. And the trouble for Disney too is that they're creating merchandise for Primark, so very kind of low end. They're also creating merchandise for Harrods and very high end. And of course, they're entirely different products. So they know they're reaching out to different demographics of audiences, but still trying to retain the integrity of them as a brand. And this one I totally get. Disney and Sky, and I love, of course, The Incredibles is there. It's an entertainment brand. People relate and connect the two things to sort of visual screen-based entertainment and experiences. So this for me works. I totally get why that would work. Incredible Wi-Fi beaming through your home. Disney, I feel, love to power with Duracell and batteries and Ever Ready and whatever they're called. This one I felt was a little bit off. This one I really love, of course. And it's a really nice way of bringing together the two. It's not too much Disney and it's not too much Duracell. Last 15 hours longer, bring your toys to life, Toy Story 4. I really, really like that one. It feels such a natural fit that you almost don't see the seams where it's sewn together. A book I always love to recommend is Evil by Design. So Evil by Design takes the 7 deadly sins and positions them to say they are the reason we have the legal system. They are the things that us idiotic humans want to do and we need to be managed. And now a lot of these have like biblical references to them, and I'm not so interested in that. But these are the 7 deadly sins. This is all the stuff we want to do every day, but we're not allowed to. Lust, gluttony, greed, laziness, wrath, envy, and pride. Sounds like a great life, doesn't it? I could totally do that. So the point is, the Evil by Design book says, if we design our experiences, because design is persuasion, right? If we design our experiences and our connections to brands that also not only look at archetypes, but look at these 7 deadly sins, you suddenly then have not one mode of communication, that comes from the brand to the consumer. Because if you're talking to the greedy person, and they're never going to admit or know they're greedy, right? So you're talking to the greedy person, they're going to want more stuff, right? They're just going to indulge in things. They're always wanting more, more, more. So how can you create pathways for them to get more stuff? If we're looking for the lazy person, that's the person on the couch who barely clicks the button to turn over the television, right? So how can you create low-hanging fruit? How can you create really simple, easy to interact and engage with content that piques this person's interest? If you're looking at the proud person, this is the one a little bit like the hero. They're the sharer. They're going to say, hey, look what I done. I got there before everybody else. I figured this out. What's the next thing? So you suddenly start looking at human behavior in addition to looking at what the brand posits as its values. So there's a ton of stuff in there to dive into. Design is about persuasion. So if we look at those 7 deadly sins, it's not about designing for that. It's not advocating that we're all evil. They're human traits. So if you want to understand human behavior, see what the laws try to stop people doing. And I think as well, Disney had a great quote that you're dead if you aim only for kids, because adults are only kids anyway. If adults have permission to play, 9 times out of 10 we will play. But people don't want to look stupid. They don't want to look like the first person. They don't want to mess it up. If you can create an ethos and like an environment where play is welcomed, you open up a loads of opportunities for brands. My last bit is looking at tribes. I don't really like to say audiences and consumers, because I think if you can corral people around something, it feels more like a tribal behavior. And a great example of this is Harry Potter. And I call this exclusive inclusivity, which sounds like a huge contradiction because it's almost like one kind of like knocks out the other. But exclusive inclusivity is you at your favorite football stadium, right? 50% of that, 70,000 sometimes people in a stadium, 50% of them are your people because they follow your team. And we all know that feeling. It's actually amazing. And even when everyone's singing the same thing at the same time, there's something so powerful about that. It could be you're at a gig, right, for one of your favorite artists or your favorite band. You're absolutely inclusive, because everyone is there looking and loving the same thing. And it's a magical feeling. It works for different faiths and religions as well. It works sometimes for different fashion brands. And this is also the power of a shared experience. I've known people do an escape room with a family of strangers for an hour on holiday, and they've stayed friends for years. There's a power of creating something for people, like I say here, to be part of something. As storytellers and designers, we're crazy to miss a trick of creating something that people can be part of. Now, the exclusive part comes into play when you're away from your tribe. So you could be standing at the sidelines shouting for some team that nobody even really cares about. When you're there, you're part of a tribe and a clan. When you're at work, they're all taking the mickey out of you because you support this team. You're absolutely exclusive. You could be out with friends and family or clients and tell them that you absolutely love an artist, and they may not know who it is, or nobody's even interested. So you have this feeling of being exclusive when you're away from your people, if you like, but 100% included when you're with them. And the reason here I have districts, houses and sorting hats is because that's what Hunger Games, Lionsgate did with Hunger Games. They created a map of Panem with the 15 districts. And there was a whole campaign that ran after Hunger Games came out where you could be assigned to a district. It brought people together in the same story world, but segregated them into groups. And J.K. Rowling was genius with the 4 houses in Harry Potter. Even more genius that the sorting hat just knew where you should go. She saved herself pages of writing there because the hat just knew where you'd be. But the 4 houses meant she wrote Harry Potter knowing her predominant audience were the same age group as her kids in the story. So now she's got a load of kids in the story and also as her audience. The witches and the wizards split was a gender one, so she wasn't going to go there. The teachers and the students was an age one, so she wasn't going to go there. So she's got a crowd of kids in story and out of story. How to make them feel even more part of something, create 4 houses. It creates competition within the story world, and it creates community outside of the story world for the fans. Gryffindor, Hufflepuff, Ravenclaw and Slytherin all have their own set of unique rules, branding, and mythology. So the kids who are fans could really find something to get behind. But to be able to create something like here for people to be part of is huge. The power of shared experiences. I worked a little bit with Doctor Who, especially when Stephen Moffat left as the showrunner and Chris Chibnall came in as the showrunner, and everyone was so excited. Jodie Whittaker, the first female Doctor Who, the 13th Doctor. This was a time for a massive rebrand, shake up, shake down, and change. Really exciting. I went into the BBC and they have a big problem because there's no integrity around the brand of Doctor Who. There are millions of fans. There's academic papers written on philosophies within Doctor Who. But we can buy Doctor Who pants. Probably some people do still have them. We can buy a toilet seat. We can buy Doctor Who toilet roll. The brand is rinsed out everywhere. You've got then stories within the Doctor Who franchise, the Sarah Jane Mysteries, the K9 series. And there was a big need to create a funnel for all of this stuff that's swirling around to be able to bring it out so everything is aligned on brand. For reasons I can't really share, that did not happen. It possibly will, and maybe the next year or two, but it wasn't happening because all the stakeholders involved were not willing to open up. And I can't really say any more about it, but rather than like the internal workings, it's more a case of this is what happens when the integrity and the DNA of the brand is let out too loose and you end up with pants and toilet roll. Who knew? I'm going to finish up quickly with Mickey's 10 Commandments. So Mickey's 10 Commandments were defined in 1984 by an Imagineer. Disney have a great team called Imagineers. I worked with them for a little while. It's the most fun I ever had because you have some people standing up on chairs and acting out characters, which was a bit weird at first, but you soon get into the vibe. 10 philosophies or commandments that work not only within Disney at every level, but also for me in terms of storytelling, experience design, and emotional design. And I'm just going to go through them a little bit. There he is in 1954 with his new characters. Walt Disney had a vision from the start. He knew exactly what he wanted. There's some brilliant maps of how he's mapped out the company and what he wanted that to look like. First one, and I've already said this, know who your audience are. Disney know they've got lots of different demographics going in and through their theme parks. They've got older people that want to sit down every 20 minutes. You've got young mums that are maybe breastfeeding babies. You've got this whole dynamic of a ton of different behaviors, and they know it. So you have to know who your audience are to be able to design an experience for them. And here's the quote: "You're dead if you only aim for kids. Give adults the opportunity to play and be playful. They'll remember it 1,000 times more." Wear your guests' shoes. Not like this, you'll probably end up breaking a leg and putting in a claim. But it's really hard. It's like trying to tickle yourself to try and experience something you've made as if you're an outsider. But Disney insists that from janitors up to CEOs, they experience the theme park as a guest and a visitor constantly. Organize the flow of people and ideas. This is really good. This is one of my favorite points. This works for pretty much every iteration of design, from even supermarkets, theme parks, and even websites. So here's the Disney map from 1958. And I love the kind of look and feel of the 50s with that. And we've got the, we know it, Main Street, Tomorrowland, Fantasyland, Frontierland. The park hasn't changed. In the 70s, I think they were all on acid and it went very psychedelic. And 1994, it turned into spaghetti. I don't know what happened. I always think there's people still lost in there from 94 who never found their way out. Took them only 3 years, thankfully, to start kind of getting a handle on it and making it look a little bit more easy to manage. But the point is this. What they don't show you on this map right down here is possibly a 1.5 to 3 hour line of people waiting to get in. And I did this with my two boys. They were about 9 and 10 at the time, and my mum. I'm the middle age between my mum and my two kids. Single mum. The two boys were killing each other. Mum was sweating, wanted to sit down. Wasn't good, right? And I'm not the only one who experienced that. So what they do here, there's an immediate reward. You step in through that turnstile, and everyone wants to go to the loo, wants to drink, stressed out. Right here, right down this bottom, Mickey Mouse, Minnie Mouse, Goofy, Pluto, Donald Duck with their arms open, welcoming you. So rather than say how you feel, you pretend to smile. You go, okay, look, it's Mickey Mouse. We need the photograph. So you stand there and you do the smile and you do the hug and you have your photo taken. You pretend to smile, you stay smiling. And this right here now, Main Street, is a 15-minute onboarding that is an overload of your senses. The smell of cinnamon, baking bread, coffee, the sounds of Dixieland music. All of these are shops that you can do the entire row without leaving one shop onto the street. The street lights along here at certain times of day cast shadows along the pathway of Mickey Mouse's ears. The attention to detail is absolutely perfect. And there's a ton of hidden magic in the design here. But the point is here, from an experienced design, over-deliver on a promise right here. They don't go, right, now you're in the park, go and find them. You'd be like, oh, whatever, right? You're there. They're there right in front of you. Over-deliver on the promise. How can we do that? How can we create an emotionally sensory onboarding? By the time we get to here, we've forgotten what happened outside. And then when you get here, there's no mystery. Everything's on brand. Tomorrowland, Fantasyland, Liberty Square, Adventureland. There's no, oh, I wonder what's there. It's all very branded with the right tone. And when you get to Tomorrowland, it's equally on brand. You don't allow the opportunity for them to be out of world. You keep the visitors in world all the time. Merchant of Venus, Stitch's Great Escape, the Luncheon Pad, Astro Orbiter. You can see for yourself, everything is named. It's not the cafe and the toilets and the train. Everything is on brand. It's actually brilliant. A weenie is a visual icon that you can see anywhere in the park. Cinderella's Castle, Space Mountain, and all of the parks and destinations have an icon that is their visual magnet. We all recognize the Epcot ball. Everyone calls it a golf ball, and we all know it's not, but we don't know what to call it. The Animal Kingdom tree, the shipwreck boat, the big ball at the World of Sports. Create this visual icon that everybody knows. Visual literacy, we do this all the time. Business centers, valets, lost and found, strollers, parking. We recognize this. We live this through apps on our phone. Disney have their own. Holiday, spring, summer, fall, Halloween. You'll recognize they don't understand winter, it seems, at Disney. Maybe by Frozen 8 or 9, they'll start opening that up. But everything's a cause for celebration. Fall, then Halloween, a ton of fun. Holidays, a ton of fun. Keeping it on brand. Avoid overload. We know that Tinkerbell has friends in the Peter Pan movies, but we don't see them in the movie. You need to create space for people to breathe and navigate. So we get Tinkerbell and Friends as a whole new franchise. And this takes us to telling one story at a time. This was the web design for the new Fantasyland, and everything's on the money. Price your vacation, plan your vacation. Here's the rates, do this, dive in. Everyone's telling you what to do on here. And then this copy is terrible. New Fantasyland is open. Who cares? Immerse yourself. I don't know how to do that. Am I getting into a bathtub? I don't know. None of us know. How do we immerse ourselves in something? It's just impossible. It's like the word love. It don't work. In all the enchantment that awaits, there's nothing less enchanting than the word enchantment. So we're being told what to do all over the place here. Do this, do that, go there, look at this. Immerse yourself in enchantment. It's not working. Praise the Lord, they changed it to this. We've still got price your vacation. And now we've got a nice gap between us and the door. And we are invited. We're not got, oh, it's open. Come and immerse yourself. We've got an invitation. We've got a hand out waiting to pull us in. Step into a tale as old as time. And the whole tone around that invitation is 1,000 miles away from them barking at us and telling us what to do. Avoid contradiction. Everything Disney is branded and on point. These are vacation planners. For every ounce of treatment, provide a ton of fun. So Disney pretty much are a food and beverage company. They make more money on that than anything else. But even when the web page is down, it's not the boring, oh, come back another day, we're sorry. It's Captain Hook with his telescope, a dastardly pirate took our map. So keep it all within the tone and the vibe of the brand. And the hardest bit of all is keep it up, right? Because it's great to come up with good ideas, but then we have to keep managing to keep them going. But for me, this is the ultimate thing. For me, build it and they will come is dead in the water. Build it and they will come, if it's architecture, means you spend millions on a hotel. You have a red velvet rope and a red carpet outside. Loads of people will come. They step in the door and it doesn't deliver on the promise. They won't return. You don't want them to come. You want them to love it so much. They come again with their friends. You want them to spread the word. You want them to do the why at the very beginning of the problem and solution that Apple do so well. The best way to get started is to quit talking. That's what I'm going to do now. Peter knows that. I just want to show you a really short clip from Apple Originals, because this for me is a good way to start thinking about punching up your brand.
This is about you right now. You have arrived.
Oh, hell no!
Everything's changed, but they forgot to send me the memo!
Go, go! How y'all doing?
What do you mean how that's offsides? What? No, I'm serious. How's that offside? I don't understand it yet.
Court, all rise.
A single count of murder in the first degree.
Be strong.
I love that. How can you put a couple of words in to just punch it up? This is from Robert McKee. Eternal universal forms, not formulas. Archetypes, not stereotypes. Thoroughness, not shortcuts. Master the art, don't second guess the marketplace. Respect the audience every time. They're not there to serve you, you're there to serve them. And originality, not duplication. Thank you very much.